Here we have a Dell Alienware 17 R4 that came in for no power. We already disassembled the board, and viewers are always wondering, is it only Asus that goes bad? Because recently we've been doing Asus laptops, and no, it's not only Asus. We get more Dells than Asus, we get more HPs than Asus, but the last couple of videos I did were on Asus laptops. Let's read what the customer wrote. Item description: after plugging in my laptop, I heard a pop. Afterwards, laptop will not turn on. I tried ordering a new charger, but it will not boot. I think it's the motherboard. And the customer is right. As soon as we plugged the charging adapter onto the laptop, we heard a popping sound, and the charger went into protection mode. It stopped supplying 19 volts. The same thing happens with Asus chargers. When there's a short on the motherboard or there's an issue with the motherboard, the charger will shut itself off so it does not create fire. So the motherboard is out. Big Boss disassembled the board, and that laptop is huge. It takes work to remove that board, but it's already out. So right now I'm gonna look for the DC in connector, and it should be right here. There's a cable that plugs into this connector, and the charger will plug into that cable. We do not have the cable here, but it doesn't matter. Right now what I want to do is look for the MOSFETs, the power MOSFETs that are right next to the DC connector. Meter in diode mode, and we're gonna test. Do we have a short? And look at that, we do have a short. And that's why the charger went into protection mode, because it detected short circuit. It goes into protection mode so it does not create fire. We have a short right here. Let's test one more time. Meter in diode mode, and if we measure here, we have a short. What do we do when we have a short? We inject voltage. I have our voltage injection tool set at 1 volt, and we're going to inject voltage at the shorted area of the MOSFET, and we're going to monitor the board under a thermal camera and see what gets hot. Let's go ahead and inject voltage at the shorted area of the MOSFET and see what gets hot on the board. And something is getting hot right here, and that's the CPU. Right here. So we have this area of the CPU is getting hot. Let's take a look at our power and gate drivers. This one here does not look good, although they can get discolored from heat. But let me do one thing quick. Let me inject voltage, and then we're gonna measure to see if voltage is going in. So right now I injected 1 volt at the shorted area of the MOSFET, and if we measure here, actually we need to be in voltage mode. If we measure here, 0 volts, 0 volts, 0 volts, and we have 0.78. What about here? We have 0. And what about here? We have 0. So we have zeros on all of them except for this one here. And this one looks beat up. The chip looks beat up. The coil looks beat up as well, but coils rarely fail. Right now, if I am to take an educated guess, I would start with this one here. Maybe we can remove the coil rather than the chip and see what happens. Meter in diode mode, and I want to measure this MOSFET here one more time to see if we still have a short. Let's wait until the board cools down a bit. Maybe we can apply some alcohol to cool it down. And what happens if we test for a short now? Are we gonna be that lucky? And the short is gone. Look at that. The short is gone. So that specific chip is what was causing the short. Wow. Right now, I'm going to remove the chip and put the coil back just to confirm. And honestly, I do not have that chip in stock. I need to look at some donor boards and see if we have it. But right now, I just want to confirm that that's what's causing the short. If yes, then all we have to do is replace the chip. And that's it. The job is done. Let me apply some leaded solder here so we can solder the coil back. And let's solder the coil back. The coil is back. Let's wait until the board cools down a bit. We're going to apply some alcohol so we can cool the board before we test again. It's not recommended to test while the board is hot because you may get the wrong readings. As you can see, we started with the chip that had the most discoloration on it. I mean, we had how many chips? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We started with the one that did not look good. It makes sense to start with the one that does not look good. We removed the coil of the chip that did not look good, and the short is gone. Was that luck or what? Let's measure and see if we still have a short. Go to this area of the board and let's measure. And I'm getting a 0.34 voltage drop reading. Amazing. Amazing. Now all we have to do is locate that chip, solder it on, and we can invoice and mail this back to the customer. Like I said, I do not have that specific chip in stock, but I'm gonna have to look at some donor boards and see if we can extract it from. I do have some boards here next to me, but I do not know if we can locate that chip, a similar chip. We're gonna have to remove the heatsink from this board and see if we can locate a chip like it. And I do not think that we're gonna find that chip on any one of the smaller boards that we have here. This is a 50 amp chip. Anyway, if we do not have it, then we're gonna have to order it, but at least we know that that's what's causing the problem. If we put the meter in resistance mode, and I just want to measure the resistance of the coil, 2 ohms from this side, and it's measuring 2 ohms from that side. Awesome. One last thing I want to do before we call it off for this video is plug the charging cable onto this connector, and we're going to plug the charging adapter to see if we're going to hear that pop sound or if the adapter is going to go into protection mode. Right, so we got it right here. It's a big laptop. What we're going to do is plug this DC in connector, which is connected to a cable, onto the motherboard, to the DC and area of the motherboard, which is this connector that I showed you right here. And then we're going to plug the charging adapter and see if 19 volts is reaching the motherboard. We want to see if the adapter is going to shut itself off or if it's going to supply 19 volts. So we have the connector plugged in right here. Right now, before we plug the charging cable into the laptop, I want to measure and see, do we have 19 volts? Or is the adapter in protection mode? We have 0 volts. Okay, we are reading 0 volts. So the adapter is still in protection mode. Let's unplug. We're going to leave it unplugged for maybe 30 seconds. And we'll try again. We have to wait like 30 seconds because if you unplug and plug it back in, it may still be in protection mode. Okay, we're going to plug it back in and let's test. Do we have 19 volts? Well, I do see the blue light, so we should have 19 volts. And yes, 19.54. Okay, and we can tell by that blue light. And now we're gonna plug that cable onto the DC connector, and hopefully we're not gonna hear a pop or see this blue light disappear. And look at that. Done. I want to measure and make sure that 19 volts is reaching inside. We can measure at the connector, and look at that. Look at that, 17.7 volts. I mean, a lot of pins on that connector, but we do have voltage going in, and the charging adapter did not go off. We still have the blue light. So the job is done. That chip is the problem. If I'm not able to locate one from a donor board, then we're gonna have to order one. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have any questions, and we'll do something else in the next video.